The suburban street was quiet, deceptively peaceful. Then came the metallic click of a gun. A security guard blocked the driveway, eyes hard, muscles taut, convinced he was in control. From the shadows, she stepped forward, calm, composed, every movement precise. He didn't know who he was facing. Every instinct told him authority was on his side, but he had no idea the storm he had provoked. The air thickened with tension. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, sensing danger but unaware of the reality. One wrong move could escalate into chaos, but the woman standing there was no ordinary civilian. Trained, tactical, and untouchable, she radiated control. His confidence faltered as he realized, too late, that he was pointing a weapon at someone whose skill and authority dwarfed his own. Prejudice had met its match. The street held its breath. In that moment, a lesson in power, judgment, and unseen strength unfolded, quietly, deadly, unforgettable. Hit subscribe, watch till the end. The early morning sun spilled over the neighborhood like a liquid gold, glinting off freshly painted fences and the manicured lawns of the quiet suburban enclave. Birds chirped lazily, and the hum of distant traffic was the only reminder that the world beyond these streets existed. To anyone passing by, it seemed peaceful, orderly, even safe. But appearances were deceptive. Beneath the calm surface of the cul-de-sac simmered a tension born from whispered judgments, old prejudices, and unspoken hierarchies. In a modest, well-kept home at the end of the street, she moved with effortless grace through the kitchen, her every motion precise, deliberate, honed by years of discipline. Every corner, every shadow, every reflection spoke to her awareness. This was a woman who had learned to read the world in subtle signs, in nuances invisible to most. Her life had been built on vigilance, on a mastery of environments most would consider mundane. Yet this morning carried a peculiar weight, a sense of anticipation that refused to be ignored. Outside, the neighborhood began to stir. Mailboxes rattled, tires hummed across driveways, the faint scrape of a jogger's shoes on asphalt echoed. But it wasn't the ordinary rhythms of suburban life that captured her attention. It was the quiet presence at the corner of her driveway, the uniformed figure lingering a little too long, eyes scanning, a posture that radiated authority and suspicion. She had seen this before, countless times in places far removed from these sun-dappled streets, instances of confrontation where power was assumed rather than earned, where assumptions about race and capability warped perception. Yet here, in the supposed safety of home, she understood immediately that bias had no borders. It followed people everywhere, hidden beneath smiles and laws, waiting to strike. The guard's presence was unremarkable to anyone else, a mere employee of the homeowner association, enforcing rules on parking, noise, or lawn maintenance. But to her, every detail mattered. The way he held himself, the stiffness in his shoulders, the almost imperceptible twitch in his eyes, all signs of someone ready to escalate an ordinary interaction into control. She moved to the door, checking that everything in her path was as it should be. Her mind catalogued possibilities, contingencies, escape routes, all instinct honed over years of training she rarely needed to display outside the field. Yet today was different. Today, the ordinary would collide with the extraordinary in a way neither party could have anticipated. The guard approached, steps slow, deliberate, a weapon casually visible at his hip. He didn't recognize her, didn't see the subtle markers of authority she carried not on her sleeve but in her posture, her gaze, the quiet confidence that radiated from her being. To the neighbors peering through blinds and half-open curtains, this was just another mundane confrontation. A woman and a security guard in a quiet suburb, a fleeting moment of tension. But to anyone who understood, the air itself had changed. The light reflected differently, the shadows deepened, and a silent narrative played out in each glance, each measured movement. This was not the moment for hesitation. It was a test of perception, judgment, and awareness. Her life had been built on thresholds like this, moments where the ordinary world underestimated her, where the veneer of civility could crack under pressure, revealing raw truth beneath. She had walked through similar scenarios in environments that demanded absolute precision, environments where any misstep could be fatal, where bias could cost lives. And now, even here, in a place where she should have been safe, those old patterns of misjudgment surfaced once again, subtle, insidious, ready to ignite. Every detail registered: the glint of the sun on the guard's badge, the faint tremor of his hand, the way he scanned the street as if measuring threats invisible to the average observer. And yet, she remained calm, deliberate. Years of training, of discipline, of quiet mastery of tactical environments, had prepared her for this. not for confrontation alone, but for the injustice that often accompanied it, the assumption that someone's identity made them weaker, less capable, less deserving of respect. The neighborhood continued its morning rituals, oblivious. Children's laughter drifted from a distance, sprinklers hissed across green lawns, and the soft whir of a passing bicycle mingled with the ambient hum of suburban life. But the street had shifted in subtle, imperceptible ways. The normal rhythm was suspended, every movement, every breath, every heartbeat carried significance. In that suspended moment, she embodied duality, the unassuming resident, and the tactical commander. One hand rested lightly on the edge of the doorway, the other unconsciously brushing against the side of her hip where her training informed muscle memory, not violence, not aggression, but readiness. She was a storm contained within a calm exterior, a force waiting only for the provocation to fully reveal itself. The guard, unaware, continued his slow approach, confidence unwavering yet fragile, anchored in assumptions that history and experience would soon shatter. The gap between perception and reality stretched taut, ready to snap. This quiet street, with its white picket fences and sunlit lawns, had become the stage for a confrontation that would expose the fault lines beneath polished surfaces, the biases that hid in plain sight, the unseen authority that demanded recognition. Every detail of the morning, every ray of light, every shadowed corner, carried the tension forward. This was the setup, the calm before the storm, the moment where ordinary and extraordinary brushed against each other, poised to erupt. And in that silence, one truth became undeniable: assumptions, no matter how quietly carried, were about to face a reckoning. The guard's hand hovered near his weapon, eyes flicking nervously as he measured her presence against his assumptions. Every step he took carried the weight of authority, but also the fragility of ignorance. He did not see the quiet precision in her stance, the controlled power that radiated from someone trained to anticipate every outcome. His confidence, built on years of underestimating people who didn't fit his expectations, wavered in a fraction of a heartbeat, though he did not yet know why. Around them, the neighborhood carried on, oblivious to the storm that had settled in its midst. A mail truck rattled past, a dog barked in the distance, yet the air between the two figures seemed suspended, taut with unspoken tension. In this ordinary street, the extraordinary was about to unfold. Every gesture, every subtle movement became a signal, a warning, a test. She did not speak. She did not need to. Her presence alone dismantled the narrative he had built for himself, a narrative that assumed fear and control were enough. Years of tactical experience had taught her the invisible currents of human behavior, the biases that dictated reactions before facts could. And now on her home street, those same biases played out like a silent script, revealing the guard's unease with cruel clarity. Time slowed. One misstep could escalate into violence. One misjudgment could have consequences he could never anticipate. The injustice of the moment, the assumption that someone's appearance or race determined their capability, hung thick in the air. And in that suspended space, power quietly shifted. The guard's authority, once unchallenged, was revealed for what it truly was: a fragile construct vulnerable to the truth standing just steps away. The street held its breath, the ordinary world paused, and the stage was set for confrontation, revelation, and reckoning. The guard's finger twitched on the trigger, but the tension in the air had already shifted. He was no longer in control, though he refused to realize it yet. Each breath she took was measured, deliberate, a rhythm that carried the calm certainty of someone who had faced real danger and emerged unshaken. He had assumed that a weapon alone dictated power, that posture and threat could command obedience. He had been wrong. Every detail of the street was sharp, amplified. The morning light reflected off windows, glinted off mailboxes, and caught the edges of shadows in ways that seemed almost conspiratorial, highlighting the disparity between perception and reality. The guard's eyes darted, scanning for backup, scanning for the justification that never came. He was trapped in a narrative of his own making, a story built on prejudice, fear, and misjudgment. And the protagonist, standing there with quiet authority, held the power to rewrite it. Her presence was a contradiction to everything he had believed. She was unassuming, almost ordinary at first glance, yet every movement, every tilt of her head, every controlled inhale revealed a mastery of the environment that was invisible to him but impossible to ignore. He had underestimated her, as he had underestimated so many before, and the truth of his miscalculation hit him like a jolt of ice. The tension stretched, a taut wire ready to snap. One false move could spiral into chaos, yet she did not flinch, did not escalate. Her authority radiated without aggression, and every second that passed widened the chasm between assumed control and actual power. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, unaware of the depth of the confrontation unfolding mere feet from their lives, unable to perceive the storm of skill, discipline, and calm coursing through the figure in front of the guard. He raised the gun, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. For the first time, he saw the reflection of reality in the calm precision before him. This wasn't about rules, fences, or imagined authority. It was about capability, presence, and the invisible weight of experience. The guard's assumptions crumbled under the quiet, lethal patience that had guided her through far more dangerous situations than any suburban standoff. The moment elongated, stretched into a suspended frame where time itself seemed to hesitate. Every instinct he had failed him. The street's ordinary sounds, the distant barking of a dog, a lawn-mower in motion, the rustle of leaves, merged into a backdrop for a drama he could not control. The authority he had relied upon for so long was revealed as fragile, superficial, a house of cards that trembled under the undeniable truth of skill and courage. And then, in the space of a heartbeat, realization struck. The gun lowered, slowly, unwillingly. His pride, built on assumptions and bias, could not withstand the weight of reality. He had confronted someone whose strength, precision, and composure were forged in circumstances far beyond his understanding. She had arrived not to threaten, but to assert presence, not to punish, but to reveal truth. And in that revelation, the imbalance of power was corrected, not with violence, but with the undeniable force of competence meeting ignorance. In that brief, suspended moment, the street seemed to exhale. The tension evaporated like mist under sunlight, leaving behind clarity and the stark reminder of prejudice exposed. The guard stepped back, disarmed not just by circumstance but by the undeniable recognition of capability and authority he had failed to see. For a fleeting moment, ordinary suburban life collided with extraordinary experience, and the narrative of fear, bias, and assumed dominance fractured. She remained composed, every movement deliberate, yet there was a quiet satisfaction in the precision of the confrontation. It had been unavoidable that the truth would reveal itself, that assumptions would falter, and that the ordinary observer, locked behind curtains and blinds, would only perceive fragments of a storm they could not comprehend. Prejudice, once subtle and unchallenged, had been held up to the light and found wanting. The climax was not in violence, not in the pull of a trigger, but in the exposure of assumption, in the revelation of hidden strength, and in the undeniable lesson